in psychotherapy. When you're talking about like larger groups, larger organizations, systems, it's not just the person who is experiencing the distress. It's the person and the environment. And the environment is made up of so many layers, and there's so many relationships within those layers. And those are definitely things that need to be made mindful of in psychotherapy, and also addressed in psychotherapy for sure.
How'd you go from, just working your 9 to 5 into deciding you want to open up your private practice?
My question was, is it fair for the child welfare worker who has like 50 cases sometimes in some counties to have to experience the trauma of all these cases, And how do we bring in the state? How do we bring in the communities? Because the communities want to help. These are their families. These are their children. And I found myself in a unit that specializes in working with child and family team meetings. And although I do love the research and exploring and advocating and developing new tools, I still was missing something. I missed the direct care. I miss engaging with clients in need. And I felt like it was part of my calling.
Do you need additional certifications to get into your private practice?
Once you get your associates, so you register as a associate clinical social worker, you're working under somebody else's license. So you have to get 3,200 hours of supervised clinical experience. After the first year of accumulating hours, you have to pass a law and ethics exam.
Do you need the master's?
Yeah, you do.
You have to get the master's.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
You need the master's, and you need the hours, and the Board of Behavioral Sciences will approve you to sit for the exam.
What are some of the easier cases, and what are some of the harder cases generally?
Some of the younger youth that I've worked with, they're still in development, and they're still kind of like developing their character, and they sometimes just want to run some ideas by you. Young adults are typically, kind of, actually most people are kind of really nice to work with. The more challenging situations are when the trouble stories are kind of like stuck on repeat. And what I mean by that is that not necessarily that it's the story that they're telling, but it's the story of their lived experience. And it's the lived experience that's constantly coming back to tell them that they're not worthy, for example. And it's challenging. Typically, these are your cases of clients who've been traumatized, abused. And it's really, those are kind of hard work, not just for the therapist, but for the client too.
How do you get someone to relive their trauma, but then have a different experience and walk away with looking at it in a positive light? Like, how do you break out of that cycle? That could be super daunting.
When the problem story tries to kind of creep back in and take dominance in the person's like story at that moment, I feel it's oftentimes helpful, like you said, to gain the perspective of others. If you can think of somebody who had unconditional love for you and invite them into the conversation and ask, how would they advise you? Do they know that you're not deserving of this pain? What happened to you is not fair to you. It's not okay. And if things are becoming like, oh no, that was traumatic. Actually, my mom was a bit of an asshole, So we can probably avoid inviting them and say, you know what, let's lock them out of sessions. Consult with that younger self and deconstruct some of that work of, what happened. And you can talk to that younger self and talk about what that was unfair for them. And then you can consult with your older, wiser self.
What I heard is if I'm reliving a trauma from my younger self, I can give myself advice and console myself of my younger version. So now it's an inner dialogue of, hey, this is what happened. I know this story, but me today being whether I'm going to take the parent role, the counselor role, the therapist role, I'm going to console myself and give and speak truth of what should have happened to me and comfort my younger self so that I can say, okay, well, at least my older self was there to, psychologically, mentally comfort the trauma or situation that I was in so I could close that chapter. How do you get clients?
So I signed up and I did quite a few.
You signed up where though? Sorry.
Oh, it was a website directory that has clinicians who do pro bono work, and I don't recall the name of it exactly at the moment.
So there are free websites that you can kind of register your services on that will kind of funnel clients to you. So you just got to find them and then register. So if someone has a private practice, there probably are those type of services they can list and be part of their program for referrals, and people could, when they're searching locally, find them and call them, and kind of sounds like that's a directory service that you're able to locate.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's how quite a bit of people found me. I signed up for Psychology Today. I have the subscription. I think it's like $30 a month or so, but I send you a magazine, which is nice. And, I have got a lot of referrals through Psychology Today. It's like you were saying, a directory of clinicians. One recommendation that I got from my therapist was from Optum. And I was like, okay, let's see. Initially, I only got I think one client from them. But I was really happy that Optum made everything kind of easy for me, so that I can dedicate that time back to my clients and building a good treatment plan for them and applying very good, better treatment.
If you register with their employee assistance programs and you have a private practice, that's going to get you a lot of clients that are going to come your way because they're not getting charged for it. The insurance is going to pay for it. So they'll be more proactive about seeking therapy because they know they're not going to have to come out of pocket for those high expenses. So what's the sign-up process like?
So this particular EAP program that I signed up for was through a health organization. And it was large organization of local hospitals. I called their providers relations line, and I was pretty much in disbelief because I put in a phone call that same day. I think it was the same day, if not the next. They sent me the application paperwork.
Nice.
I sent over the paperwork, and within a week, I was getting referrals.
Do you need a website, or how do you get a website? And talk me through that process, because I think there's a way people could get your services directly. Is that right?
Right, that's right. So signing up with Simple Practice was pretty great. They most people can kind of just reach me through my webpage. I think it's powered by Monarch, I think. So Monarch handles the webpage, and Simple Practice has the actual private practice platform where I kind of handle my scheduling, billing, handling the video calls, all that work. And yeah, so they can go directly, do private pay however they want, or they can share their insurance information with me and I can run it. But yeah, it's a pretty great little tool.
What insurance do you have for liability?
Some payers, providers, panels request a specific notation that this insurance applies to telehealth, and some insurances don't. They have to kind of write a formal letter and stuff like that, right? Yes, in addition, this does in fact cover telehealth. But yes, yeah, I do have to have the insurance. Have to pay my regional taxes. Have that tax ID. And go through all those motions. Yeah, it's a lot of homework, but you have to kind of chip away at it. Yeah,
I didn't even think about that.
Right.
So there are places, if you needed an office and wanted to offer that, you could find a hoteling type of system where you book it for an hour, 2 hours, you have your session, and then you just got to figure out your margins at that point.
Right.
What are you getting from the insurance? What is it costing you to book this for an hour or two? And is the profit margins there to make it work? Or do you just want to do it to get your name out there for referrals? And so there's probably offices that you could look up to just do specifically that. So that's another good avenue to look at it from an in-office perspective, because you were saying earlier, some insurances don't do telehealth. So you might have to do it in person.
Right.
If you had to do it all over again, would you do anything differently?
Yeah. I mean, for people who are more kind of rational, make your life easy. Just find a place that'll do it all for you. Whether that's working in a psychiatric hospital or a group home. When I was working with the group home, they offered to cover my clinical hours. They were offering to have me be a social worker for the nonprofit. And looking back, I was like, that would have looked really great, but it wouldn't have fulfilled my my stipend payback requirement that I did for my master's program, because I was My master's was funded through Title 4E state funding. So for every year that I was in the program, I had to work for a county child welfare agency. The therapy can internalize in you. You know, there is that transference. Understand where that energy came from, and if they put it on you, you got to understand like, okay, this energy is with me now. What do I got to do with this? You know, so you don't take that home and put it onto any of your loved ones. If you need a break, you got to take a break. You know, if you need a vacation, take a vacation. Whatever it is for self-care, you know, those spaces are sacred. They're important to you. If there is time where you're feeling like, oh, you know what, I can put this aside. I can, you know, cancel this meetup so that I can see another client. You got to be mindful of and honor, like, what does that mean to you? Like, who is that community to you? Who is that? So remember what's fair to you. You are deserving of time. You, although you want to be a kind-hearted person, that's great, but you need to take care of yourself too. If the trauma becomes too much, you know, policy is a place. That's just one of many that's out there where you can apply yourself still and be effective.
That's a good point. I didn't think about the alternatives in that case where you go from the private practice or from the therapy side, and if the person can't really balance that out, then to your point, there's alternatives. There's so much in the industry, and the stress level is going to be a lot lower. You're not going to get that secondhand trauma. So that's a good fallback and a good alternative to what happens if you can't do it. Then here's your exit strategy to still do something. So I think that's great.
Absolutely.